We got another letter in the inbox that made me stop mid-sentence the first time I read it, because the writer wasn't describing a cool storage auction win. He was describing a unit that looked like a prank, a mistake, or a trap, and he bought it anyway with money he truly couldn't spare. He says the moment he uncovered what was buried under the sand, someone showed up outside the door like they already knew. All right, let's read the letter. Hello. I'll keep this short at the start because I'm still embarrassed I did it all. I'm a single dad, and the day I bought that storage unit, I had $63 left in my checking account. My 9-year-old daughter was at home thinking I could fix anything, and I was staring at rent, a car that was barely starting, and a stack of school notices I'd been pretending not to see. The auction was at a small storage place on the edge of town. Most units went way over what I could even consider, and I'd already told myself I was only there to watch. Then they rolled up one door, painted a tired red, and it was just sand, wall to wall, piled high like someone had turned the unit into an indoor beach. A strip of caution tape was stuck in the mound at an angle like a bad joke. People laughed, made comments, and walked away. The manager said the renter paid cash for months, brought a small truck one night, filled the unit, then vanished. We opened it, and it was this, they said, like sand was a personality flaw. The bidding started at 50 and died in the air. 40, 30, still nothing. When they dropped it to $20, my hand went up before my brain finished arguing with my pride. $20 didn't fix my life, but it also didn't buy groceries for a week anymore. I signed the paper, got the key, and drove home feeling like I'd purchased a problem just so I could own it. The next morning I came back with a borrowed shovel, tarps, contractor bags, and a rule I repeated to myself like a prayer. If I hit anything that looks like weapons or drugs, I'm done. I rolled up the red door and the sand sat there in that dead fluorescent light, packed tighter than it should have been. The first few scoops felt normal until the third one made a sound that wasn't sand, a heavy, hollow thunk that traveled up the handle in my wrists. I dropped to my knees and dug with my hands. A metal corner appeared, cold and clean under the grit, like it had never belonged there. I cleared around it until I could drag out a small lockable box, the kind you'd see on a job site. I forced the latch with a screwdriver, half expecting junk, and instead saw coins and sleeves, a thin stack of bills, and a velvet pouch with a chain and 2 rings that didn't look like costume jewelry. On top was a faded envelope with 2 words written on it. First layer. That stopped me, because nobody writes first layer unless there's another one. I didn't dump everything out like those videos online. I did the opposite. I took photos where it sat, wrote the time in my notes app, then cut a trench straight back through the sand so I could see the floor. About an hour later, the shovel hit something wide and flat. I scraped until a square outline appeared. A hatch set flush into the concrete, with a recessed handle clogged with grit like it hadn't been touched in years. I got it open only a few inches at first. Cold air breathed out of the gap. I wedged a piece of wood under the edge, lifted again, and the panel finally tilted back enough to reveal a shallow chamber underneath. Not a tunnel, not a horror movie, just a hidden pocket lined in rough concrete, holding 3 things. A canvas duffel that clinked when I moved it, a plastic crate wrapped in painter's plastic and tape, and a heavy lockbox with a dial. I pulled them out one by one and dragged them into the trench where I could work. The duffel held bank envelopes with dates and labels like dentist and roof, and one thicker one that just said if needed. The tape crate had folders marked by years and a notebook full of tight little budget lists, like someone was trying to hide money from their own life. The lockbox was last. I spun the dial out of pure stubbornness until my fingers found tiny numbers scratched into the underside, like someone couldn't trust themselves to remember. The lock clicked open. Inside was a fireproof pouch, a stack of papers bound with a rubber band, and one index card sitting on top like it was waiting. Block letters. Uneven. Simple. To whoever dug the sand. I swear my hands went numb. Because that wasn't a label. That was a message. And right when I read it, I heard a small squeak in the corridor outside. A cartwheel, stopping. Then silence. Then a soft, deliberate sound at the door, like someone's fingers testing the handle before knocking. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I just sat there in the trench with that card in my hand, realizing I wasn't the first person who thought about coming back for what was buried under my unit. The knock didn't come again right away. That was the worst part. Whoever was just stood there long enough for me to picture every bad option. Then the wheels squeaked once more, like they shifted their weight, and I heard a quiet voice through the metal. "Hey, you in there?" I slid the index card back on top of the papers like it could disappear if I hit it, then shut the lockbox lid without latching it, just enough to make it look untouched. I killed my phone flashlight. In the dim light from the corridor, I shoved the duffel and the tape crate behind a slope of sand and pulled the hatch down until it rested almost closed, leaving only a hairline gap. My whole goal in that moment wasn't be brave. It was don't look guilty. I climbed out of the trench, brushed sand off my sleeves, and stood where anyone would expect to see a guy shoveling. Then I rolled the red door up a little higher and said, "Yeah." A man was standing outside with a reflective vest and a clipboard. Not a cop, not security. Older, calm face, the kind of person you believe worked here. But his eyes didn't scan the sand or my shovel first. They went straight to the floor, to the trench line I'd cut, like he was checking how far back I'd gone. "Maintenance check," he said. "You didn't open anything under the sand, right?" That sentence hit wrong. Not everything okay. Not need help. Just that. Under the sand. Like he already knew there was an under. I forced a shrug and kept my voice flat. "Just digging the top. I had metal box, that's it." He stared at me half a second too long, then nodded like we had just confirmed something between us. "Good. If you hit a larger panel, don't pry it. It can get messy. Just come to the office." Then he walked away without another word, cart squeaking behind him. I waited a full minute before I moved. Then I did the least heroic thing possible. I grabbed the small metal cash box and the velvet pouch, shoved them into my backpack, locked the unit, and drove my car to the other side of the lot like distance could lower my pulse. I hated that I was doing it, but I wasn't leaving that index card sitting in the open with someone asking questions like that. At the office, I asked for the manager, the same one from auction day. I didn't tell a whole story. I just said, "Someone in a vest told me not to open anything under the sand. Is it your guy?" Her face tightened in a way that didn't match routine. She said, "We don't send anyone to say that," then glanced at the hallway like she was suddenly aware of how thin those walls were. She pulled up my unit file, asked me to repeat exactly what he said, and wrote it down word for word. Then she did something that made my stomach drop. She turned her monitor slightly so I could see the security feed thumbnails and said, "Describe him." I did. Gray hair, vest, clipboard, no name badge. She clicked through timestamps from that morning. The cameras didn't show inside my corridor clearly, but they did show the front gate. And at 9:18 a.m., a man matching my description walked in like he belonged there, even though he never came through the office. The manager stared at the screen, jaw tight. "Stay here," she said, and made a call I couldn't hear. While she was on the phone, my own phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No greeting. No name. "Close the hatch. Take what's in the box. Leave the papers." My mouth went dry because I hadn't said the word hatch to anyone. I didn't answer the text. I turned my phone face down and asked the manager, "Can you lock the front gate and call police non-emergency right now?" I expected her to question me. Instead, she nodded once, like she'd already decided this wasn't just a weird storage story anymore, and she hit a button under the counter that dropped the gate arm outside. While she was on the phone, I did 3 things fast. I screenshot the message, I wrote down the exact time, and I pulled up my unit receipt on my email so my name and the unit number were on the screen. Then I asked her, quietly, if she'd had any former employees who knew that corridor didn't have good camera coverage. She didn't answer the question directly, just said, "Stay where people can see you." 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes. I kept it simple. Sand-filled unit, digging, someone in a vest said under the sand, then a text that used the word hatch. One officer's eyebrows lifted at that. The other asked for my phone, photographed the text from his own device, and told me not to go back alone. The manager printed a visitor log and pulled the gate footage again. The vest guy never checked in at the office, never drove through the gate on camera, and yet he was inside the facility. That's what made the officers stop treating it like a misunderstanding. They walked me back to be 12 anyway, but not the way I'd come. One officer went ahead, down the corridor first. The other stayed behind me. The air in that hallway felt colder than it had any right to, and the sand smell hit like dry pennies. When we got to the red door, the lock looked normal, until the officer pointed to the bottom track and said, "Fresh scrape." Then he crouched and showed me the fine line of disturbed grit where someone had tested the door. We didn't open it. The officers had the manager unlock the corridor gate at the far end and wait with a radio. We stood there listening. For maybe 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then, soft, unmistakable, plastic wheels on concrete. The same cart squeak. It was coming from inside the corridor behind us, slow and confident, like whoever it was assumed the place belonged to them. A man rounded the corner in a reflective vest, pushing the cart with that clipboard tucked under his arm. He stopped when he saw uniforms. His eyes flicked to me for half a heartbeat, sharp, annoyed. Then he forced a smile that didn't reach his face. "Oh," he said. "Didn't know anyone called it in." The officer didn't raise his voice. "Badge?" he asked. The man patted his vest like he'd forgotten something, then tried to step around us. The second officer moved once, blocking the corridor. The vest guy's calm cracked just enough. He muttered, "This is stupid," and turned the cart like he was leaving. But the first officer was already asking the manager, "Does he work for you?" She said, clear as day, "No." That was the moment everything got loud without anyone shouting. Hands moved. The cart tipped. The clipboard hit the floor. And out of the clipboard sleeve slid a laminated map of the facility, hand-marked, with a circle around B12. They detained him right there. Later, in the office, one officer told me the phone number that texted me wasn't registered to a name, but it pinged the same area towers as the facility that morning. He didn't guess, the officer said. He knew. I paid one more day on the unit and went back the next morning with a manager present and a body camera recording the whole time. We opened the hatch properly and pulled only what was inside. Cash envelopes, a few small valuables, and a packet of papers that looked like someone's private backup plan. No weapons, no drugs, no anything that would turn my life upside down. Just a lonely, careful stash built in layers, then hidden under sand like the world couldn't be trusted with it. The bank part wasn't magic. They wouldn't touch anything without a report number and the storage paperwork. I waited 2 hours, signed forms, and watched a branch manager read a short note the previous renter had left in the box. The note didn't make me the owner of everything on paper, but it made one thing obvious. This wasn't a fresh theft. It was a dead-end life savings that had fallen into limbo, and someone else had been trying to claim it the dirty way. After the legal pieces and fees, it wasn't movie money, but it was enough to breathe. I paid the overdue notice in my glove box the same day. I fixed my car so it stopped coughing smoke. I put a real cushion in my daughter's account and took her out for pancakes without doing math in my head first. I still think about the sand sometimes, how much effort it takes to hide something, and how much effort it takes to uncover it the right way. If I hadn't raised my hand on that ridiculous unit, if I'd walked away when everyone laughed, I'd still be counting down to the next shut-off notice. And if I tried to be quick and quiet, I'm not sure I'd be writing you this at all. Thanks for reading. That's the whole truth of it, as cleanly as I can tell it.